In the bustling heart of Lagos, where high-rise towers kissed the sky and neon lights painted the night, a young black African boy named Chike stepped off a crowded bus, his school uniform freshly pressed and his shoes polished, his eyes wide with wonder yet heavy with the ache of home he had just left behind. He wore a crisp white shirt tucked into slim black trousers, his backpack hanging loosely, and though he looked every bit the modern city boy, deep down he carried the heart of a village child whose roots clung to the red soil of Enugu, where his widowed mother still lived, struggling to feed his younger siblings, and it was this longing for a better life that made him accept the strange offer of Madame Adana, a wealthy black African woman in her 40s who had swept into his world like a storm, her tall frame wrapped in a flowing emerald green designer gown with gold accents, her manicured hands glittering with rings and her expensive heels clicking on the marble floor when she first approached him in the upscale boutique where he had been working part-time. "You have sharp eyes, boy," she had said, her voice rich and commanding. "You remind me of someone I once lost. Come with me, and I'll give you a life beyond your wildest dreams." Chike, in his innocence, had thought it an opportunity sent by God himself, and so he left his small rented room, stepping into her luxurious black SUV with tinted windows. And as they drove past the bustling streets filled with young men in denim jackets, women in floral dresses, and children chasing footballs in their sneakers, he glanced back only once at the dusty road that led home, whispering a silent promise to his mother that he would return with riches one day. Adana's mansion towered at the edge of Banana Island, its glass walls shimmering in the sunlight, guarded by men in sharp suits and polished shoes. And when Chike first entered, wearing his modest clothes that seemed out of place among the velvet couches and chandeliers, he felt swallowed by a world not his own. Yet Adana insisted he wear the tailored outfit she bought him: slim fit jeans, crisp button-down shirts, leather jackets that smelled of wealth, and as he stared at himself in the mirror, he saw not a village boy but a stranger wrapped in luxury. Adana paraded him before her wealthy friends during high society parties, where women in glittering gowns sipped champagne and men in silk suits discussed business deals, and each time she introduced him, her hand resting on his shoulder, she said, "This boy is my protege, my future." But Chike, though smiling politely, felt a hollowness gnawing at him for every compliment he received. He remembered his mother's cracked hands washing clothes by the river and his siblings' worn-out slippers. At night, when the parties ended and the house grew silent, he sat by the massive window overlooking the lagoon, clutching the small woven bracelet his mother had tied on his wrist before he left, whispering, "I will not forget where I come from." Weeks turned into months, and Adana tightened her grip on his life. She paid for his schooling in the most elite academy, where he walked among sons of billionaires dressed in designer sneakers and branded hoodies, while he himself wore the newest clothes she bought, always looking polished yet feeling like a mannequin in someone else's store. He excelled in classes, his sharp mind impressing even the teachers, but his classmates mocked his village accent whenever it slipped, laughing behind their designer sunglasses, and though Chike smiled faintly, his heart burned with shame and pride all at once. Adana, noticing his sadness, took him shopping more often, draping him in suits, watches, and perfumes, her voice coaxing like silk. "The past doesn't matter, Chike. Forget the village, forget the poverty. You belong here now." But each night, in the privacy of his room filled with gadgets, he wrote letters to his mother, letters he never sent, for Adana forbade him from contacting his family, saying they would only drag him back into the mud. Still, he wrote, pouring his longing onto the pages, his tears staining the ink as he whispered, "Mama, I haven't forgotten you." One evening, at a grand gala held in a glittering hotel ballroom, Chike stood beside Adana, wearing a sleek black suit and bow tie she had chosen, his hair neatly cut, his shoes shining, and though cameras flashed and people clapped, he felt suffocated. Across the room he saw a group of young waiters in plain white shirts and simple trousers, their laughter genuine as they served trays of food. And in their eyes he saw something he had lost: freedom. That night, when Adana praised him for his composure, calling him her diamond polished from dust, Chaik only smiled weakly, but inside his resolve hardened like steel. No matter how rich the cage, it was still a cage, and no silk suit could erase the memory of the mud paths where he once ran barefoot with his brothers. The mansion, the cars, the clothes all felt borrowed, but his home, poor as it was, lived in his very blood. Chaik stands alone in his lavish bedroom, dressed in yet another expensive outfit Adana had gifted. But instead of admiring himself in the mirror, he stares at a small photo of his family tucked in his wallet, his lips trembling as he whispers, "I will not forget home. I cannot." And though the city roared with wealth and temptation outside, a storm was brewing within his heart, one that would soon clash with the world Adana had trapped him in, threatening to tear apart the fragile balance between luxury and loyalty. Chaik's days in Adana's glittering world grew heavier, like golden chains he could not shake off, and though he still wore the sleek suits, branded sneakers, and freshly ironed shirts she demanded, his spirit fought against the cage of wealth. One Sunday morning, as the mansion glowed with sunlight reflecting off its glass walls, he slipped away in a simple navy blue hoodie and jeans, sneakers laced tight, determined to visit the part of Lagos where the buses roared and the air smelled of roasted corn. The place where he felt alive, and as he walked through the crowded market, vendors shouted in Igbo and Yoruba. Women in modern Ankara skirts and fitted blouses bargained fiercely. Young men in denim jackets laughed, and he felt his chest loosen as if breathing home again. But his joy was cut short when Adana's driver spotted him and quickly whisked him back to the mansion, where Adana, dressed in a fiery red designer gown and diamond earrings, paced like a lioness. "Chaik," she hissed, her eyes flashing, "I gave you everything. Why do you keep clinging to the dirt?" Her voice echoed across the marble floor, and though Chaik stood tall in his modern clothes, his voice trembled as he said, "Because the dirt you hate is the soil that grew me." Adana slapped the air, not touching him but pointing sharply to his room, locking him away like a child, and from that day on she doubled her control, making sure he was never left alone, dragging him from gala to gala, her arm always hooked through his, as if displaying her prized possession. But inside Chaik, the fire grew. At school, he befriended a quiet black African girl named Ifeoma, who wore a simple floral gown with a denim jacket and spoke with a gentle accent of the countryside. And in her presence he felt seen, for she too carried the ache of leaving behind a family struggling in a small town. One afternoon, as they sat beneath the shade of the Academy's modern glass library, she whispered, "We may look polished in their world, but our roots are the same. Don't forget yours." Her words struck him like lightning, and that night he scribbled a secret plan in his notebook. Hiding it under his pillow, he would return home, even if it meant breaking free from Adana's grip. Days turned into weeks, and every time Adana gifted him a new watch, a new pair of shiny loafers, or a sleek suit, he smiled politely but tucked away money she left lying around, building his escape silently like a bird weaving a nest. The breaking point came at a lavish charity banquet in a towering hotel, where the chandeliers sparkled and black African elites in shimmering gowns and three-piece suits filled the hall. Adana, in a golden sequin dress, introduced Chaik to a foreign investor, declaring proudly, "This boy will inherit my empire." Chaik, dressed in a crisp tuxedo, his polished shoes reflecting the lights, felt the room spin as the investor's handshake gripped him, and in that moment he heard his little sister's laughter echo in his mind, saw his mother's tired face, and realized he could not live this lie another day. With trembling hands he excused himself, slipping through the crowd of women in high heels and men with champagne glasses, running out into the humid night, his bow tie undone, his heart thundering louder than the Lagos traffic. He did not stop until he reached a small bus park where conductors shouted destinations, and with the money he had hidden, he bought a ticket home, clutching it like a lifeline as the bus rattled forward. Hours later, when the city lights gave way to dusty roads and tall palm trees, Chike stepped off the bus, wearing only his hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, the expensive tuxedo stuffed into his bag. And when he saw the familiar clay house where his mother lived, tears blurred his vision. His mother, dressed in a modest but modern patterned gown, rushed out, her hands trembling as she pulled him into an embrace. His younger siblings in casual t-shirts and shorts clinging to his legs, and for the first time in months he felt whole. Yet, the peace did not last long. Adana's black SUV roared into the village hours later, her sharp heels clicking as she stepped out, her voice dripping with fury. "You are mine, Chike. I made you who you are." The villagers gathered, men in buttoned shirts and women in head wraps standing their ground. And Chike, holding his mother's hand, spoke firmly. "No, you didn't make me. This soil, this family, this love, this is who I am." Adana's face twisted, but when she saw the fierce loyalty in the villagers' eyes, she realized even her wealth could not buy his soul. With a bitter laugh, she turned, her gown sweeping the dirt as she stormed back to her car, leaving behind the boy she could never own. That night, under the dim light of a kerosene lamp, Chike sat with his family, still wearing his simple hoodie and jeans, eating roasted corn and laughing with his siblings. And though his pocket still held more money than his village neighbors could dream of, he felt richer than ever. For in choosing home over gold, he had chosen freedom. The moral whispered through the night air like a song. In Africa, wealth is nothing without roots, and no mansion can replace the warmth of family.